Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, and we will cover part of verse 3. There are, I think, 4 points which need our attention in this verse. So I'm just addressing the first 2 because I thought these require a bit more detail. And that is why I have called it part 1. And these 2 points are what is Iman and Iman in unseen, which is known as Ghaib in Arabic. These are the references. All extracts are taken for making slides of today's presentation are from the Meanings of the Quran, Volume 1. This is our contact in case anyone wants to find out anything about this presentation or any of the previous presentations. Recap of previous presentation where we covered verse 1 and 2. This surah begins with 3 letters. Those are acronyms Alif, Lam, Mim, which are acronyms for Allah, Alim, Hakim, decrees all that which is put forward for the guidance of mankind. It is in response to the supplications highlighted in Surah Al-Fatiha. This is the book, that is the Quran, which will provide guidance to all those who are looking for it in this finite life of theirs. And important is that we should keep in mind that this life of ours, that is a physical life in this world, is finite, and which puts a good perspective on what we do over here. So time becomes important, and that is where the values given in the Quran come and play their role, because then we become motivated to do those things, to carry out those solid deeds which relate to our self-development. The book contains all the knowledge which is required by the human intellect for it to navigate through the maze of earthly life, and it also explains the rationales and reasonings behind all its directions, commands, values, and attributes. Doubts and uncertainties do arise in the human mind. In fact, these arise continuously about the issues of life, even at a very basic level, that is family level, during this earthly stay. And this book will address all issues related to the human psyche as it is from Allah, who is Alim and Hakim. So, important role of what is noted in the Quran is to address these doubts and uncertainties which arise in our mind. This book serves as a guidance for those who wish to become muttaqeen and wish to avoid the dangerous alleys of worldly life. Only the Quran can help to avoid these dangerous paths and guide on to Sirat-e-Mustaqim. An overview of today's presentation. 4 important aspects of the system of Deen are noted in this verse, i.e. Iman, Iman in the unseen, establishment of Salat, and making Rizq available for others. And Rizq deals with the sustenance side of human life. The tense used is collective, i.e. part of the system. And that is important to keep in mind that it is all collective system. So individuals, while they are important and they play an extremely important role, but their coming together is the one which we should keep in mind. 2 aspects are covered in this presentation, i.e. Iman and Iman in the unseen. The Quran has asked those who are looking for guidance to acquire conviction in its message through a process and procedure as explained within its folds. This Iman has 5 constituents, i.e. Allah, the hereafter, Malaika, that is the forces of nature, whether they are external or internal, that is within human psyche, the books, and the Anbiya. And Anbiya over here will mean the messengers of Allah who brought revelation for the guidance of mankind. These constituents form the basis of accepting Iman, and the Quran describes these at various places and refers to the changes which take place within the human psyche as a result of accepting Iman. This journey of acceptance moves from individual to becoming part of a Jamaat Momineen, and this aspect will be discussed in some detail. For Iman in the unseen, it tells us that as we tread on the path of the Quran, the results gradually start to manifest. That means the results are not visible initially, but gradually these manifest themselves and appear as signs noted in various verses. Since Deen is a collective system, hence the first signs appear in the form of a change within the psyche of Momineen. Iman and its signs of manifestation. Allazina yuminuna bil ghaibi wa yuqimuna salata wa mimma razaqnahum yunfikun. Now, while we read this verse, we should link it with the previous one. For example, the last verse, number 2, ended at Hudallil Muttaqeen. So we should ideally read it, Hudallil Muttaqeen, Allazina yu'minuna bil ghaibi wa yuqimuna salata wa mimma razaqnahum yunfikun. That is the guidance for Muttaqeen, and these are 4 things noted over here are related to these people who are trying to become Muttaqeen. These are the people who maintain conviction in those realities which are obscured from the sight and trust on those outcomes of the right path, which, though they are initially concealed from the sight, it is a certainty that they will ultimately manifest before them. For this purpose, these people establish that system in which all people keep obeying the laws of Allah. That is the system of Salat. And whatever means of sustenance they are given, after keeping back what is required for their own needs, they keep the rest available for the nourishment of mankind. Now, further reflections on this verse. Having highlighted the supplications of Momineen in Surah Al-Fatiha and then pointing to the uncertainties of unguided minds, the Quran tells us that this book of Allah provides guidance to those who wish to become muttaqeen, so that they bring their will in line with the will of Allah. And we had quoted this verse in our previous presentation, وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ, that they should not wish except what is wished by Allah. That is what is noted in the Quran. For them, they should follow that, and Allah being Rabbul Alameen, then they will see that whole thing will fall in place towards the system of Rububiyat. That is the equitable distribution of means of sustenance for everyone. In today's verse, 3 aspects are highlighted at the outset using the plural tense, that all those individuals who have a strong desire to be guided on this path called Sirat-e-Mustaqim need to strive to accept Iman. And verse starts with Allazina yu'minuna bil Ghaib, so that they come to grips with the comprehension of the laws of Allah, which, when obeyed, are bound to produce outcomes connected to their striving on this straight path. Next is, how will these outcomes materialize? By establishing the system of Salat, that is yuqimuna salata, which includes the distribution of the means of sustenance bestowed by Allah among all of humanity in the world, وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. Next, we will explore these aspects, that is yuminuna bil Ghaib, in some more detail. Exploring Iman. So the first aspect is Iman, and we will look at it in more detail. The Quran uses the term muttaqeen and then explains this term according to its unique style. It defines who are the people designated as being muttaqeen and what are their distinctive characteristics. It is stated that they are the people who have Iman in the unseen. The first word in this is Iman, and this is that basis on which the whole structure of Deen becomes raised. Because the ideology and the conviction which forms the foundation of a system, that is very important. And we can see what kind of ideology and belief system functions under the capitalist system or the communist system. There will hardly be a page of the Quran in which this word has not been mentioned in one form or another. If it is present, then there is Islam. If it is not present, then there is no Islam either. But this is our irony, that the level of importance which this term or concept possesses, the prevalent wrong meaning has taken us that much further away from Islam. An explanation of this will appear before us a bit further on. First, we should understand the linguistic or basic meanings of this word, that is Iman. And it is, as I said earlier, this is taken from the meanings of the Quran by Pervez. The root of Iman. The root of Iman is given here, A-M-N, and as is known, Aman means fearlessness, contentment, or the state of being protected from dangers. Amana means to make someone worry-free and contented, giving peace to another, taking the responsibility to protect him upon yourself. So it is not just about our own self, but it is how we behave, how we project that Iman onto others. Among Arabs, the she-camel, which was trustworthy because of her strength and nature, and about whom there was the assurance that she will not become weak from a sustained journey and will not stumble and fall on the way, was called Naqatun Amunun. Hence, Mominun will mean the one who is in a state of peace and contentment himself, because he has come to grips with his own Iman and he understands what it means. And then he wants to share that Iman with others so that they also acquire that. And obviously this means creating a system. And who also gives assurance of peace to others, and by trusting whom man can become free of worry and contented. One attribute of Allah himself is that of Al-Mumin, which means the one responsible for the peace of the universe. And this being the divine attribute, we are also asked or invited to display this attribute in our own character. When Amana is followed by Lam, that is noted here, it means to accept some matter. And when it is followed by Ba, then it means to accept Iman as stated in this verse. Kullun amana billahi. All have Iman in Allah. And we can see over here, Ba is added before Allah. This is that Iman which is the foundation on which the whole structure of Deen is established, and its wrong meaning becomes the cause for countless complications. Iman is not faith, and this is a very important point which we will clarify. In the English language, it is translated as faith, and faith means to accept something without evidence and logic, without knowledge and vision, without thinking and reflection, acceptance without reasoning, with eyes closed. And this is the kind of concept or belief which prevails among all religions, that you have to just accept it. And this kind of Iman is considered to be highly admirable in that domain. The greater the degree to which some individual accepts some matter without logic and reasoning, the greater his Iman is solid and unwavering. And this is the reason why intellect and Iman are considered to be the opposite of each other. And it is generally stated that we accept God without reasoning. In fact, the way God is accepted, even people who within the domain of religion are not in the domain of religion, is the one who is in control of the outer world. But as far as human world is concerned, this God has nothing to do with that. This meaning of Iman is contrary to its Quranic meaning. According to the Quran, Iman means to accept truth correctly based on knowledge and vision, logic and evidence, after thinking and reflection with the full conviction of the heart and mind. And we know that if we want to achieve conviction about something, it is a process. It is to think about it over a period of time. We need even conviction to do our job. If we think that this job will not get me enough to live life, then we will not be fully convinced to stay in that job. So conviction means that it has to be based on evidence, and it should satisfy our heart and mind together. This will be called conviction in the English language. Next slide is Allah throws light on Iman in the Quran. The Quran has declared that Momineen are those people, those who, when they are admonished with the signs of their Rabb, droop not down at them as if they were deaf and blind. Important point over here is that the attribute of Rabb has appeared in this verse, and which means that these human beings are thinking very intensely and focused way that how are we going to solve the problems of this world, and what is our role, and what Quran is putting forward in terms of solutions to these problems. And obviously for that, they cannot be deaf or blind, but they have to think very hard and look at every aspect individually as well as collectively. Even when the verses of Allah are presented to them, they do not bow before them as if deaf and blind. It makes our study of the Quran very challenging. We have to go through every verse and find the link with the previous one and the next one, and of course from beginning to the end, as a concept of Deen in terms of solving the problems of humanity. They do not accept these by shutting their eyes. This is the fundamental trait of a Mu'min. In another verse, it is stated, therefore, follow Allah's laws, and the term used is taqwa, O you men of understanding who have accepted Iman. Fattakullaha ya ulul albab allazina amanu. That those people who wish to follow the laws of Allah, they are the ones who rise to a very high level of discernment. They achieve a very high intellectual understanding, and that is how they become Momineen. Here it is stated that only those who are men of knowledge and understanding accept Iman. In Surah Al-Hajj it is stated, and that those on whom knowledge has been bestowed may learn that this, that is the Quran, is the truth from your Rabb, and that they may have Iman therein. And the words used in Arabic are وَلِيَعْلَمَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّكَ فَيُؤْمِنُوا بِهِ. So that those people who have knowledge in this matter, and knowledge means not just acquiring information and knowing about something, but analytically looking at it, that is, they turn the information into knowledge for their own benefit. In this matter, that this Quran is an established reality from your Allah, here also Iman is conditionally linked to knowledge. Next slide is following the ways of forefathers without the guidance of the Quran leads astray. Because it is convenient for people to keep following what is coming to them from their parents and from the previous generation of people, because they don't have to do a lot of thinking. Human beings avoid doing intense thinking because they think it is just a sheer laziness, that they don't want to think hard and look at the problems and find out what is going on around them. The Quran strongly condemns taqleed, that is blind obedience of forefathers, because that means they are not using their mind properly, for which they have been given all these cognitive abilities. Taqleed means the acceptance with closed eyes of those beliefs and concepts which have been passed down through the generations from predecessors, and not to evaluate them using logic, evidence, intellect, and reasoning. Regarding the kuffar, the Quran states, when it is said to them, follow what Allah has revealed, they reply, nay, we shall follow the ways of our fathers, because it is convenient, because it is providing the benefits, particularly people in power. What, even though their fathers were void of wisdom and guidance. So that means we should assess, evaluate everything using our wisdom and the guidance of the Quran, and reject that which is not conforming with the value system of the Quran, and accept that which follows, which is in accordance with the values of the Quran, so that we get the maximum benefit in this life. These people will keep following in the path of their forefathers, even if their forefathers had never utilized intellect and reasoning, nor had gone forth in the light of Allah's guidance. Despite this, they will follow in their footsteps, so that the hell into which they sank, they can also fall into it. The next slide is the question of Mu'min and Muslim. It is important to understand this fact that the Quran more or less uses the words Mu'min and Muslim with similar meanings. At times it gives preference to Muslim over Mu'min, from this perspective that a Mu'min accepts the truth and a Muslim bows before it in practical terms and obeys it. From this respect, it also uses the words Mu'min and Muslim separately. For example, these are two verses, for Muslim men and women, for Mu'min men and women. At another place it states, those who have Iman in our signs and are Muslims. In such places, we can say that being a Muslim is an intrinsic trait of a Mu'min, i.e., according to the Quranic meaning, a Mu'min is one who has Iman in the verses, that is signs of Allah, and obeys them. In other words, he is a Mu'min as well as a Muslim. This is the same state for a Muslim, that he is both a Muslim as well as a Mu'min. In other words, according to the Quranic meaning, a Mu'min is also a Muslim and a Muslim is also a Mu'min. The word Musalman does not appear in the Quran. At this juncture, the point we are trying to clarify is that the Quran declares Muslims as being members of Muhammad's Ummah, who was the last messenger of Allah, i.e., it recognizes them as a separate and distinct nation from non-Muslims. And this is in terms of the system of Deen. Over here, we should keep in mind that since we do not have system of Deen anywhere, so submission to any laws is not possible as a collective entity. So we can become a Momin, but as far as becoming a Muslim is concerned, that has to be related to the system of Deen. The case of Muslims by birth. But if they are not Momin according to the Quranic standard, then it does not include them in the category of Momineen, though it also addresses them as those who have Iman. At various places in the Quran, it is important to understand this difference and bear in mind that when does it mean a Quranic Momin and when does it mean merely a traditional Muslim. Regarding the members of a Muslim nation, it is also important to understand that if anyone among them, that is Muslims, denies the truth of even a single one of the matters of which the Quran has spoken, or also accepts some other wahi after the Quran, then he can no longer remain a member of the Muslim nation. In Surah An-Nisa, it is stated, O you who have Iman in Allah and His Messenger and the book which He has sent to His Messenger and the scripture which He sent to those before Him. O Momineen, it is obvious here that this refers to the members of the Muslim nation. Acquire Iman in Allah and His Messenger and on that book which Allah has sent down on His Messenger and on those books which He has sent down before this. Note that the address is to Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, and they are being told Aminu billah. Ya ayyuhallazina aminu billahi wa rasulihi wal kitabe, i.e. you should accept Iman in Allah. And that is important because Quran is saying that doesn't matter whether you are a born Muslim or you have somehow just accepted Islam without realizing what it means. You should have Iman in Allah, in His messengers, and the book, that is the Quran. And of course, we have noted those 5 items which are noted in verse 177 of Surah Al-Baqarah. So it needs some kind of intense reflection that what exactly we are accepting in terms of values and the system from the Quran. Next slide is human self needs Iman of the Quran. In this regard, see also the following verse in which it is stated, those who have Iman in the Quran and those who follow the Jewish scriptures and the Christians and the Sabians, any who have Iman in Allah and the last day and do salih deeds shall have their reward with their Rabb. On them shall be no fear nor shall they grieve. And I'll read the Arabic part of it. Innal lazina amanu, again all those who claim to be Muslims, that is noted here. Wallazina hadu, those who are Jews, wan nasara, those who are Christians, wasabiina, who are Sabians. And then Quran says, man amana billahi wal yawmil akhir wa amila salihan. So that is an important state that doesn't matter whatever you are or you are born or initially you had. The main point is that you must have Iman in Allah as noted in the Quran, and then as a consequence of that, Iman in the hereafter, which includes the law of requital, and then do salih deeds. So Quran throughout covers Amanu wa amilu salihate, because this Amanu is the one which leads to salih deeds, and through salih deeds we bring out our best. Falahum ajruhum in the rabbihim. And then see over here, the Rububiyat factor comes in, that this is how you will proceed towards establishing that system. Wala khawfun alayhim wala hum yazanun. And if you do this, then that system will take out that fear and huzn which exists under the man-made systems. We can see here that the way in which the Jews, Christians, and Sabians are invited to have Iman, similarly, Allazina Amanu, those who call themselves Muslims, have also been told to accept Iman. It is obvious that this also means those Muslims who have not accepted Iman themselves, but who are included in the nation of Muslims. I've seen this kind of a verse quoted by some people who think that everyone is included in that, and it doesn't make any difference whether somebody is Jew or Christian or Sabian or even some other religion. But that is not correct, because man amana billahi wal yawmil akhir wa amila salihan should be studied, and it comes after these statements. So this qualifies that what Iman means and how the things will materialize in the material world. Jews and Christians have also been asked here to have Iman in Allah and the hereafter, even though it is their claim that they believe both in Allah and in the hereafter. And that is very important, that what kind of a God people believe under the religious domain. And we will see that their belief in God is not the same as the concept given in the Quran. It is plain from this that the Quran does not accept this Iman of theirs as being Iman, because Iman does not mean that some individual should simply say that I believe in Allah. And we know that if somebody wants to convert to Islam, he or she is asked to go through a Shahada and then declared to be a Muslim. That is not how we accept Iman. Iman is a process of acceptance over a period of time by convincing ourselves that the path I wish to adopt is the right one, and my intellect and my emotions have fully accepted it. These have become fully convinced of it. Iman is only his who accepts Allah according to that concept which Allah has presented in the Quran. And this is why he has stated, so if they have Iman as you have, they are indeed on the right path. And very important verse over here, because as you have, that is the way Messenger has accepted. And Messenger also went through the same process of accepting Iman. Now, next slide is the Quran puts forward the precise details of the modus operandi of accepting Iman. Understanding every single word of the Quran to be based on haqq and truth is called Iman. And obviously, it is a slow process. We have to go through part of education and training and self-development before we come to terms with haqq. If any one of the matters noted in it is not accepted as truth, or a doubt sets in regarding its being based on truth, then the Iman of such an individual does not remain as Iman. To illustrate it further, the Quran has declared 5 constituents as being part of Iman, i.e. Allah, the hereafter, Malaika, the books, and Anbiya. We went through this verse in our previous presentation as well, and has declared the rejection of these or any one of these as kufr. And I have underlined kufr over here, because kufr is after knowing the path of the Quran, after knowing that what realities the Quran is presenting before us, and then we knowingly reject it. If we do not know about it, if we have never been exposed to the teachings of the Quran, then obviously the question of rejection does not come into it. The meaning of having Iman in them will be Iman according to all those details, differentiations, and characteristics which have been detailed about them in the Quran. If that Iman is not according to the Quranic concepts, then it will not be recognized. And over here, recognized means then we will not be able to get those benefits which are associated with the acceptance and convincing ourselves about Iman in the Quran. Because this Iman brings a tangible change within our psyche and in our outlook and in our behavior in the outer world. It should lead to doing saleh deeds. It should lead to coming together. So Iman means that it should come out in a practical sense in the outer world. That is why Quran says that unless the inner human psyche is changed, the outer world is not going to change. In order to accept Iman with the total satisfaction of the heart and mind, the Quran has described this technique. Whoever rejects evil, and Quran calls it taghut. Taghut means going outside the limitations and boundaries defined by the Quran, and has Iman in Allah, has grasped the most trustworthy handhold that never breaks. And the Arabic wording is فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ. And see over here, kufr means to reject something after fully coming to terms with it. If we do not understand the system, man-made system, which is called taghut, then we are not going to reject it properly. And if we do not reject it properly, that means we will have doubts lingering in our subconscious, will not be able to acquire that Iman to which the Quran is pointing our attention to. Rejecting man-made systems and their ideologies. In this verse, that is 2256, how the condition of rejecting evil, that is kufr bil taghut, is considered essential before reaching Iman in Allah. Without going into details, a taghut can be understood as meaning every ideology concept, belief, school of thought, and maslak, which is against the Quran, which also includes all sectarian belief systems. They have to be rejected first. Hence, in order to accept the Quranic truths, the foremost condition is that the mind should be cleansed and purified of all non-Quranic concepts and ideas. In this way, when the human mind has a clean slate, then the words and marks of Iman will be able to be imprinted on it. This is a very important aspect of human psyche, because if we do not get rid of all these belief systems from our conscious and subconscious domains, then essentially we let these viruses linger into that, and these keep bothering us throughout our life, and the Iman of the Quran will never find a full abode within our consciousness. New writings cannot be inscribed on the slate which is already written on. This action of rejection and acceptance are declared to be two constituents of this kalma, that is the pronouncement, by the acceptance of which one then acquires Iman, that is La ilaha illallah. According to the first part of this kalma or pronouncement, it is essential that man rejects every non-divine God and after that accepts that God is Allah. And over here means brings all his desires and wishes within the domain of the permanent values. Because what happens is that over here we are talking of replacing the man-made systems with the system of Deen. And for that, we need that specific psyche, that specific personality or self, which can carry out that task. Without this law part, that is the first part law, the destination of Allah cannot be reached. Now I have drawn this schematic replacing contents of our minds with Iman. The Quran invites us to change the state of our psyche by seeking its guidance so that we acquire a new psyche which becomes deserving of the help of the laws of Allah and is enabled to accept those responsibilities which Allah has clearly outlined in the Quran. If the state of the collective psyche of those who call themselves Muslims fails to meet the criteria laid down by the Quran, then we need to investigate it using the Quranic light, that is Nur. Because Quran calls itself light, and when the light comes, the darknesses disappear. And since Quran deals with human psyche, so the darknesses of human psyche at a default state need to be treated and should disappear when the light of the Quran is accepted as Iman. Acquiring Iman willingly to change our psyche. Understanding Iman as explained in the Quran and then accepting it as guidance without any compulsion. This leads to a tangible change within us which helps to progress on Sirat al-Mustaqim. Allazina yuminuna bil Ghaib. Walakinnal birra man amana billahi wal yawmil akhir wal malaikati wal kitabi wal nabiyina. Now I have quoted part of this verse 177. We remember that over there verse says that it is not facing east or west which will give you the understanding of Deen and give you vast consciousness in order to understand the issues of life. But there is, that is how we understand these matters, is by having Iman in Allah, in the hereafter, in Malaika, the books are the book which is the Quran, and wal Nabiyina, and all messengers who brought these messages to mankind. It is just for consistency's sake, because for us at this point in time, Quran provides complete code of life before us. And as long as we understand that the same message consistently was passed on to mankind from the beginning of time, that is important, and that gives us assurance that what is presented in the Quran is haqq, and it will take us to that destination which is specified within its folds. But there is to accept Iman in Allah, the hereafter, Malaika, the books, Anbiya. Now, next slide is some signs after becoming Momineen. So over here we will share some signs which are given in the Quran and which we can check as well through based on evidence. It has been said at the start that Al-Mumin means the one who guarantees peace and security. As far as mutual relations among Momineen are concerned, there can be no doubt in their being guarantors of peace and security for each other. The Quran has declared them to be brothers of each other. And Quran says, Innamal Mominuna ikhwatun. The Momineen are but a single brotherhood. Very interesting, because we know biological relationships of siblings. But Quran is taking us far higher. Among the siblings, there can be conflicts. And a lot of siblings, they suffer with conflicts in the later part of life because they follow different courses of life, different paths of life. As a result, they fall out with each other. But over here, all those siblings, even if they're following different paths, if they come to the Quran and acquire Iman, then this relationship will be far stronger. This will be, in fact, a cementing force, because the relationship of Iman, this connection, once it is acquired, then it continues beyond death as well. Their characteristic is compassionate amongst each other. Rohma'u bainahum, and we know Rohma is related to human nourishment, and it includes both human self as well as physical body. So once these people acquire Iman, they come together and they become very kind to each other, very compassionate to each other, because they have to carry out those duties which Allah has taken on Himself. And then Allah becomes their companion and they progress further on this path. And it has been clearly stated that if a man kills a mu'min intentionally, his recompense is hell, to abide therein forever, and the wrath and the curse of Allah are upon him, and a dreadful penalty is prepared for him. It's a very important point, because a mu'min becomes an extremely important person in the sight of Allah. And Quran continuously talks about Momineen. And this point we should keep in mind, and once we come to this verse, then we will explore it further. Continuing with a few more signs, they firmly stand for the system of Rububiyat. Inna lazina qalu rabbuna Allahu summa istaqamu tatanazzalu alayhimul malaikatu alla takhafu wa la tahzanu. In the case of those who say our Rabb is Allah, see again reference to Rububiyat, and further stand straight and steadfast, Malaika descend on them, saying, fear you not, nor grieve. And Malaika over here are related to the psychological forces which arise within us, which provides inner strength through acceptance of Iman. They become convinced of the guidance of the Quran and acquire that psyche which comes to grips fully with the issue of fear and huzn. Allah inna awliyallahi la khawfun alayhim wa lahum yahzanun. And if you remember, we have quoted the other verse, Allahu waliyul lazina amanu yukhrijuhum minal zulumati ilan nur. That once people acquire Iman, then they become companions of Allah, because they commit to Allah that we will carry out all those duties in the man-made world which others have failed to do, so that this life becomes free from fear and huzn. Their mutual differences totally disappear through their own resolve and efforts, as now they have one goal in life as they bring their self within the folds of the Quranic value system. This is a major sign of acquiring Iman, that all those who claim to have Iman, and once they come together, their differences disappear gradually, because they start consulting the criteria given in the Quran. They overcome their own inner base proclivities, and they develop that self. They rise far higher than the basic human beings. وَتَعْصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ. And hold fast collectively by the rope of Allah. Rope over here means the Quran and its value system. And be not divided. And remind yourselves about the ni'mah of Allah, that is the bounties of Allah, which are mentioned in the Quran in terms of the physical means of sustenance as well as self-development issues. For you were enemies and He joined your hearts. And we have gone through this aspect. There is no harm in reiterating it, that human differences create enmity among them. These create conflict. And we can see the word of 2024, how it is ridden with all kinds of conflicts, wars, and imbalances. They fully comprehend the ruin associated with being divided. because they become totally, they become fully aware of the differences and dissonances with which they existed in the previous life. And once they have acquired Iman, how all these dissonances and differences disappear from their psyche and they come together. And Quran says, وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ تَفَرَّقُوا وَاخْتَلَفُوا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتُ وَأُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. And over here, it's a cautionary note in this verse that don't be like them who divided themselves, and they had great and big differences among themselves. And why did they do it? By after getting all the information through the wahi of Allah. And we can see these sectarian differences despite claiming to be the followers of the Quran. And these differences, what happens is, because of these differences, they live a life of hell in this life. And we know that those who do not make an effort towards the system of Deen and are contented with the hellish life in this world, they have nothing in the hereafter. Some more signs related to their psyche. They willingly and joyfully enter into a covenant with Allah. And Quran says, Inna Allah ashtara minal Momineen anfusahum wa amwalahum bi anna Allah hum jannata. These Momineen, those who have accepted Iman, then they willingly agree with Allah that we will carry out all those responsibilities which are noted in the Quran. Allah has purchased from Momineen their selves and their possessions in return for Jannah. They fully understand the link between Iman and Salih deeds, i.e. perform those deeds as noted in the Quran, which help to bring out all the latent potentials of the self which are needed to help towards the establishment of the system of Deen. And this is not otherworldly. These things materially manifest from their self, and they can check it themselves in the light of the Quran. And in fact, the evidence of this change within them appears very clearly before them. And over here, I've quoted this verse 24:55, which means ultimately this unity of their hearts leads towards establishing the system of Deen and acquiring power in the land. They keep in mind all the problems and evils created by the man-made systems in the world and remain fully cognizant of the fact that وَيَخَافُونَ يَوْمًا كَانَ شَرُّهُ مُسْتَطِيرًا, that they fear a day, that if they did not work on this path, they fear a day when evil will fly everywhere. And we can see in today's world, the things are becoming worse with every passing day. And why it is happening? Because there is no Jamaat Momineen who should have prevented this from happening. Deen is not anywhere in the world as a system. As a consequence of this fear, they make full efforts to understand the issues of Miskeen and Yatim, those who are left alone and who are left as orphans, human beings in the area in which they live. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. So these people are the ones who are very conscious of their own self as well as what is happening in the world. And what they do is they look at these people who are deprived and orphans others through Salih deeds. They do arrange for that within their capacity and within their ability. The whole issue is to prepare that psyche of a moment which can then carry out those deeds which Allah has noted in the Quran. That is why Quran says, promote good and forbid evil. When we do not forbid evil and do not promote good, then obviously the world will decline and will create problems, and there will be a chaos and conflict. From this, they acquire such an eminent self which reaches this level of development where Inna ma nutimukum li wajhillahi la nuridu minkum jazam wala shukura. They reach at that stage where when they are helping someone, they clearly say that it is for the sake of Allah. That is, we want to establish the system of Deen. We have declared ourselves to be companions of Allah, and we do not expect any reward or any thanks from yourself. Because when these people, those who have acquired Iman, are doing this, there is a very lofty aim in front of them, and which is the system of Deen, and they are getting their self ready for that. Now we go to the next word, a term, bil Ghaib, and we analyze it. The narrative began as Allah had stated, you called upon us and requested that for passing through the journey of life, you should receive guidance towards the right path. You will obtain this guidance in this Al-Kitab, which will produce contentment in your hearts by removing the cognitive dissonances created by doubts and uncertainties, conjectures and speculations. But only those people will be able to benefit from this guidance who desire to reach their intended destination by remaining protected from the treacherous pitfalls of this journey. And these treacherous pitfalls are because of the man-made systems. It will become evident from here that even after this clarification, only the one who acquires the conviction that whatever is being said to him about this path is absolutely accurate and true will be able to take a step forward on the journey. As long as he does not attain this conviction, he will not lift a footstep on this journey. He will never adopt this path. Eimaan is the name given to achieving this certainty about the future, but it is stated about this Eimaan that we have Eimaan in the unseen. Next slide is expanding the term unseen. The question is, what is the unseen or Ghaib? By translating Eimaan as faith, the difficulty which we have referred to earlier becomes even more severe when the unseen is added to it. The meaning generally taken of Eimaan bil Ghaib is Eimaan in invisible Allah or Eimaan in other such realities. After this, it is said that the Allah are realities in whom Eimaan in the unseen is accepted. What need can there be in that for the use of knowledge, intellect, reasoning and evidence, and reflection and understanding? Thus, true and firm Eimaan is only that which is accepted without proof and divine reasoning. And this is the domain of all religions, where people accept without going for any proof, any evidence of it. As we have already seen, this concept is contrary to the concept presented by the Quran. It therefore becomes imperative that we should examine what the precise Quranic meaning of Eimaan bil Ghaib is. That is, Eimaan in the unseen, what it means. The basic meaning of the word Ghaib is something which is hidden from the eyes. The condition for this is that that thing or reality must definitely exist somewhere. And very important, it is not something which does not exist and we try to have faith in it or belief in it. Therefore, those things or realities will be described as Ghaib, which, though they are definitely present somewhere, are concealed from human sight. That is, initially, these things are not visible because these will become visible after we tread on this path. Explaining how unseen becomes seen after accepting Eimaan. The path which was highlighted by the Book of Allah for the foremost group of muttaqeen was completely novel path for them. In order to tread on this, it was this kind of Eimaan in the unseen which was needed that has been mentioned in these lines. It is obvious that the opponents must be pointing to the likelihood of thousands of kinds of difficulties and dangers on this path. They must be saying hundreds of things to prove it to be wrong. It was possible that doubts could also have arisen in their hearts by this. Hence, there was the requirement to have a very firm resolve and concrete Eimaan for this. And it is a fact of life that if we are treading on a path which is unknown and we don't know, we know the destination and some kind of aim in life, but the path itself is very difficult, then people are not very sure about it and they think that maybe we cannot get to that destination which we are aiming for. For example, system of Deen does not exist anywhere. So we have to have some kind of a firm Eimaan after following this path that this is possible. And before us, of course, the earlier era Islam is an example that it did materialize at that time. And those first forerunners from among the Muhajirin and Ansar, Muhajirin over here means those who migrated to Medina from Mecca, and Ansar are the ones who were already residents over there. For the establishment of this system, when circumstances were extremely unfavorable and events were very discouraging, followed it in an excellent manner because they were firmly established in their mind that this is achievable. Because they conformed to the laws of Allah, His blessings and bounties became congruent with them. And such a paradisical society was readied for them whose prosperities will never diminish. They will abide therein forever, both in this life and in the life of the hereafter. And this is the great achievement and accomplishment of man. And because they had all come together, they had seen the first sign of their coming together as a display of their firm Iman, because their hearts had become united and they were willing to sacrifice everything for the sake of this system of Deen. Human efforts produce results in the world, and they were showered with flowers of praise and appreciation. It is a fact that the status of pioneers is very elevated, because those who are pioneers, in front of them there is no system, there is nothing on ground, and they are going into that system through accepting Iman and then accepting the next sign and then accepting the next sign and then seeing the next sign and the changes which are taking place within their own psyche. They know this is because of the law of Allah. When their sown field produces the mature crop, on seeing this, droves of people then appear to join this system. The Quran has described this as being the natural consequence of the great efforts and sacrifices of the Jamaat Momineen. It is true to say that for those coming later, the tangible results of this system become an incentive for them to be drawn towards it. But even they require some other conviction and guarantee, and that is that the law according to which this system has produced these results once is an immutable law, not subject to any change. And Quran does provide reassurance because it mentions the success of many messengers from history and says if they could do it, you can do it too. Whenever action is taken according to it, those same results will ensue which have been produced once according to this law. This is that truth which the Quran repeatedly presents when it states, "Such was the practice of Allah among those who lived aforetime. No change will you find in the practice of Allah." So Allah's laws are immutable. Once these laws are followed, then these are bound to produce those results which are noted in the Quran. Allah's laws are immutable. The whole Quran is an evidence of this very truth, that there can be no change in the outcomes of the laws of Allah, whether these are laws of nature working in the outer universe or Quranic laws relating to man's individual and collective life. This whole system of the universe is functioning with such beauty and harmony because there is never any change in the laws on which its foundations are raised. It was on the basis of the firm conviction in the immutability of these laws, as noted earlier, that Rasulullah, that is the last messenger, told his opponents that if you are not convinced of the truth of this, even after this degree of intellectual reasoning and evidence, then only one method remains after this. Say, "O my people, do whatever you can, I will do my part. Soon will you know who it is whose end will be best in the hereafter. Certain it is that the wrongdoers will not prosper." You carry on working according to your system. I am working according to my program in my own place. I will not interfere in your program, nor should you place any obstruction in my program. Then after that, wait for a short period, as much time as is required for the crop to mature after sowing the seed. You will witness with your own eyes to whom success will reach. My claim is that the field of the one who is unjust can never prosper. You declare that this is false. Nations engage in all kinds of evils and oppressions in the world, yet continue to prosper. In response, it was said, "Just wait a while. This reality will appear before you in a tangible and visible form, that the field of the one who is unjust can never bear fruit. Nothing can go against this law of Allah." Another aspect of Ghaib. There is also another form of Iman bil Ghaib. A farmer has retained a small quantity of wheat seed which can be used for his and his family's sustenance. He lifts the sack of wheat seed and mixes it with the soil in his land. After this, he rises every morning and works with all his might all day in this field and returns home at night empty-handed. He does not do this for just 1 or 2 days. He does this continuously, day in, day out, for months. Those who are ignorant about this program of his and its outcome will surely call him insane. that this can only be the action of a madman, that for months he strives with all his might all day long and he does not achieve anything in return for it. The question is, why does he do this? What is his motive for doing this? The answer to this is very simple, and it is that although tangible results from his hard work are not apparent for the time being, he has conviction that these same few seeds which he mixed in with the soil are one day going to enter his house in the form of many sacks filled with ripe wheat. To have Iman in the unseen results of some program is also called Iman bil Ghaib. So this farmer has Iman, firm Iman, that once he sows his seeds, he is going to get a good crop, provided all other conditions remain good. Unseen becomes seen when followed according to the Quranic guidance. The discussion started from this point that those people who resolve to undertake a journey and desire that they should receive a map and details of that route which can transport them to their intended destination without fear and danger, then this Al-Kitab can provide such guidance. But since the path described by this book will be one on which they will not have previously treaded, they will only be able to adopt this path with full assurance and determination when they have complete certainty about this path being correct and free of danger. Therefore, the first trait of muttaqeen is that, having complete conviction in the validity of this unseen path, i.e., the unseen results of this new system, they adopt it. After this, the Quran describes what they will need to do to reach their intended destination. Now, over here, I've drawn a schematic how unseen becomes visible, and I've also quoted the law of requital. Blue planet, which is created for children of Adam, and this is very motivating if we think of it, that this planet has been created for our finite life. And there are over 7 billion people residing at this point in time in 2024, guidance provided through Wahi, the Quran, and choice is left to Bani Adam whether they wish to follow it or wish to follow their own desires. Year 2024 is basically a Taghuti system. Majority lives life under unbridled intellect and emotions, assuming the life ends with physical death. This life is lived under the physical laws, including the law of cause and effect. Hence, consequences of human events can be predicted to some extent. For example, sowing a seed, outcome of wars and conflicts will always lead to more problems. Might is right is the relative value which people in power follow. Divide and rule, and we can see plenty of these examples in today's world. And we can add more examples to this. Without Iman, under the man-made systems, that self does not materialize, which meets the criteria of the afterlife. And this is an important aspect, and it clears a lot of doubts. Because once we are on this path and have acquired Iman, the change which comes within us becomes an evidence in itself that what kind of a self is required for the life of the hereafter. And these are some people who have come out of these 7 billion people. Let's say they have accepted Iman. They are dissatisfied with man-made system. That is the first stage. Second is they look for guidance, and they find guidance in the Quran. That is, they accept Iman, and then they start doing solid deeds as a consequence of accepting Iman. Iman in unseen then comes before them because they see that what they used to be and what they are at this stage. And that change in itself becomes evidence before them. Uniting of hearts plus self-development, unseen starts to become seen. And then after this stage, they come together with those who are also in this path, and they proceed together, and their hearts start uniting with each other, and then they realize that how far they have come from the initial stage where they were just dissatisfied with the Taghuti system. And what I've done over here is that if what we sow, so shall we reap. That is the law of requital. What they were doing over here was going forward as their deeds, and they ultimately catch up with the effects of their initial steps on this path. Life lived under physical laws has one outcome as per the Quran. All ends with physical death, no development of the self of the afterlife. And we can see that without Quran coming into our life, how can we achieve this point? We can be united in evil, but it is impossible to unite for the system of Deen and for the interest of the larger mankind. Life lived under the domain of permanent values commences with Iman, followed by Saleh deeds. Inner psyche transforms, self-development process starts presenting evidence of the unseen, collective effort starts to materialize. And over here, I have quoted a verse from Surah Al-Hashr, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu taqullaha wal tanzur nafsum ma qaddamat lighat wattaqullaha innallaha khabirum bima ta'malun. That, O Jamaat Momineen who have accepted Iman, follow Allah's laws, and at every step see what you are sending for your tomorrow. Because if you're sending good for your tomorrow, then you will meet up with the consequences of it later on. Wattaqullaha, again it is repeated that keep following Allah's laws, and remember, Inna Allaha khabirum bima ta'malun, because Allah is all the time aware of what you are doing. He knows the secrets of your hearts as well as what you are doing, which means the law of requital is ensuring that whatever you are doing, you'll get the results of it. Finally, accepting Iman changes the course of our life eternally. We have briefly looked at two aspects of this verse, i.e. Iman, and when this is acquired and understood using the Quran, it points to those successful and prosperous outcomes to which Allah Rahman and Rahim has pointed our attention in Surah Al-Fatiha. Remember, Rahman and Rahim deal with the aspects of nourishment and development, that it includes human self as well as the means of sustenance for the physical body. This Iman is linked to becoming muttaqi by removing all our dissonances, doubts, suspicions, uncertainties, and proclivity to despair and lack of patience when we decide to step on Sirat-e-Mustaqim. And it is not an individual path, because by coming together, we provide strength to each other. And in any case, the system of Deen is a collective system, and it needs a core team at the top who is willing to follow the precepts and values of the Quran. Since everything in the universe follows the laws of Allah, hence we need to keep our attention focused on the law of Iman and Saleh deeds, which we will come across later as we explore all aspects of the system of Deen. Living under the man-made systems in 2024, it appears as if the path put forward by the Quran is unlikely to materialize into concrete results. And these doubts do arise in our mind even for a short time, because we see the massive pharaonic system around us and we think that how it is going to be changed. But that is not our issue. Our issue is to keep following the path by coming together and then see how the things materialize later on in our life. However, we need to look at the sunrise and think that this book is from Allah, who has created everything for just one purpose. Each and every deed of each one of us produces that precise outcome for which the universe has been created. And I've quoted this verse. We have gone through it previously as well. This is that unseen outcome, the excitement for which should keep us treading on this straight path. And with that, we come to the end. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen.